Yeah, later on this one again is pretty much for the same reasons. I wrote a few reviews and I didn't want to waste them. Anywho, another great year for gaming for me as I beat 56 games and I enjoyed a lot of them. There will be a good amount of honorable mentions and maybe next year I'll rein in a bit more. Well, let's get on with it. Number 10. You Will Die Here Tonight. I've grown to like roguelikes even with some mixed experiences. I never would have thought that one with the inspiration from a forgotten Resident Evil handheld game a la Resident Evil Gaiden would be made. This game is really addicting with its well done horror atmosphere, exploration, and really fun intense combat system. It's not too long, so it makes for a nice bite-sized treat. I played it on my Steam Deck and it ran fine. And if this ever comes to other platforms, it's definitely a must-play BU survival horror or roguelike fan. Or just someone who wants to try roguelike, as it's not frustrating when it comes to difficulty. Number 9. Black Myth Wukong. Some might be surprised it's so low on the list since its reputation, but even if it is low here, I still feel it's a great game. I personally didn't know what was going on story-wise, all I know is it's a sequel to Journey to the West, and by the time I hit the credits of the true ending, I kinda just shrugged. Though I did enjoy the mini stories in between chapters and how those were animated. Speaking of visuals, this game is great looking, and there's so much variety when it comes to normal enemies and bosses. Like, I was surprised how pretty much every boss looked different because there are so many of them. The gameplay itself is super fun with 3 different pose stances and magic powers you have in your arsenal, and the fact you can reset points gives you some wiggle room to mess around and find out what you like. I ended up using the thrust stance with some clone magic and some others. The difficulty is challenging but fair and has soul-like elements, but when you die you don't really lose anything, so it never deflates your urge to keep going. Number 8. Slitherhead. This game was a nice surprise, especially since not many people talk about it, and it's by the guy who did Siren, Gravity Rush, and Silent Hill, and you can kind of feel it. The story itself is pretty interesting, especially when a certain aspect is thrown in, and even though there's barely voice acting, it didn't take away from it. I will admit the combat itself can feel a bit janky, but it's still fun as there's something about mind hopping between civilians, which can be old people to take down these creatures that I find hilarious. There are core characters you use, each with their own abilities like a gravity pool, healing, poison, and such. And they have their own weapon like their fists, claws, swords, and so on. I think each feel different from one another, and you'll find at least 2 you prefer, and they ain't the usual type of heroes as you got housekeepers and bums. Number 7. Batboy. This was an insanely fun 2D platformer, and I liked the sport-themed character design, so much so if a sequel came about I would like the graphics to get out in Nintendo style to show them off a bit more. The gameplay itself was nice and responsive, and I like that most of the boss powers did come in handy during my playthrough, and not just for killing the boss. There's even special side levels that really challenge you and even give you a special boss fight. Only real complaint I had was a glitch trophy problem. Number 6. Evil Tonight. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this game, as I never knew I wanted a Resident Evil-like game in Super Nintendo form. I really love the visuals, and even harkening back to those days, it still keeps a good creepy atmosphere with some good enemy designs. The gameplay leans more towards action, and it's really fun shooting different weapons like a shotgun and crossbow, and this has to be one of the most useful knives in a horror game. There's also some good puzzles if you want that as well, with a likable lead. Number 5. River City Girls 2, a sequel to a great game that improves on many things. This time around you have 4 characters off the bat, and can eventually have 2 more, and all of them look great and play differently, and you're allowed to switch between them at the house or a new base you find when roaming around. Once I got Marion, aka Hot Muscle Lady, I stuck with her as I really dug her playstyle, and you get more moves as you level up and buy them. This still has the same anime flair and some great music, and the gameplay has been refined as combos and movement felt less stiff compared to the first, making everything just flow that much better. There's even online co-op this time around. Also, while the dialogue was written from Misako and Kyoko in mind, the voice actor of whichever character you picked still voices the lines. Which I don't mind because they could have been super lazy and just had Misako and Kyoko's voices come out of whoever you picked. Number 4. Doom the Dark Ages. It shocks me that this era of Doom has been able to release 3 games that feel unique from one another while keeping the soul of Doom. I know some hate on this one, but that's no shock since some hated on Eternal, and that was freaking awesome. While the last game was basically the Doom Slayer if he were on crack, this is him as a powerful tank. The shield is your handy side weapon along with your many upgradable weapons, and with it you'll be ripping and tearing as you can toss it and most importantly parry with the new mechanic here. And it's insanely fun. It starts off kinda easy, but pretty quickly you'll be getting into tense firefights with a lot of shield use and killing, and seeing all the blood is a sight to behold. I will say play on ultra violent at least, to get the most out of it, as I found anything lower way too easy and less tense. The story has more of a focus here and it's a prequel to the previous 2 modern games, but don't worry, it doesn't bog down the action. And the Doomslayer is still presented as a ridiculous badass. There's also flying dragons and giant mech sections, which are pretty cool. Number 3, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This game wears its Jet Set Radio inspiration on its sleeve, which is a good thing. The grinding and movement is so damn smooth and it doesn't feel like you're struggling to control your character. The art style is gorgeous and locations are varied, not to mention the eye-catching character designs making you want to switch it up. I even bought the DLC characters just because of their designs. You're also allowed to hop on different equipment to pull off some cool tricks like rollerblades, skateboards, and bikes. There's also a good amount of spray designs to pick from, and the game has a banger of a soundtrack as well. Like there wasn't one track that had me going, ew, change it. The last thing that caught me by surprise is the game has a plot that's a little more than just sticking it to the man, and it had me interested till the end. Number 2, Blades of Fire. The team behind this is Mercury Steam, which is one of the reasons I had my eyes on it, as it did such titles as the Lords of Shadow games and some Metroids a la Metroid Dread. I have to say they delivered as far as I'm concerned, with a great game with Souls-like elements, a brutal and fun combat system, and 2 leads that gel well with each other. It also has some blacksmithing mechanics allowing you to build your weapon and hammer it out. While the story's pacing felt kinda slow, maybe because I was exploring so much, I still was invested and it gave me a satisfying ending. The visual style also kinda reminded me of Lords of Shadow, which is a good thing in my book. The game itself is also pretty welcoming if the word Souls-like puts you off, and it even has difficulty options. Now it's time for some honorable mentions, starting with Enderlily's Quietus of the Nights. This Metroidvania was a surprise treat my friend recommended me. It has a very somber atmosphere and the story fits it as well with some fun gameplay to boot, and really nice visuals. Fatal Fury City of Wolves, a new Fatal Fury with some fun mechanics and with some single player content that can keep you busy. You can tell they put a budget behind this title with its visuals and surprisingly adding an English dub. Marvel Midnight Suns. I was really iffy when this game was first shown as it seemed like not my cup of tea. Though when I played the demo I found out it was just a regular RPG with some card mechanics, which was up my alley. The DLC is also worth it for at least the characters. And the game has difficulty options, so if you run into any trouble, you can land on that. Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. This did give me some nostalgia since I grew up on the Rugrats, and you know usually games based on shows, movies and such tend to suck. But this one ended up being a fun little platformer for all ages. Helldivers 2. I get why this game got so popular when I finally played it with my friend. It can become so chaotic at times with all the explosions and calling out strikes and weaponry. It got so addictive that I even played a little by myself and had a blast as well. Evil West. This game doesn't get brought up much, but it was definitely a breath of fresh air when I played it, as it calls back to the old hack and slash type games from previous eras. It never becomes boring as you're constantly unlocking skills, and it can become challenging, and it's all wrapped up in an awesome visual style. Alone in the Dark. This 2024 reimagining with the original Alone in the Dark was great with its atmosphere, combat, and puzzles. Though I will admit there was a puzzle or two that was a little confusing. It really sucks that this team went under after this one, as they had a good grasp of finally bringing the series back, and it would have gotten better with the next entry. Crow Country. A survival horror game that calls back to the classics with its own visual style that makes it stand out, with some pretty creative creature designs and locations. The combat feels tense and there's some creative puzzles, though one which is a train really confused the hell out of me. The next 3 games have one big thing in common, so I bundled them up. And that theme is Christmas games, as we don't have enough of those and the ones we do have usually suck. First one is Legend of Santa, which is what if instead of Mario we have Santa and boom, a fun little classic platformer. Then we have X-Men's Apocalypse, which is a fun roguelike where you play as Santa and friends and shoot up monsters. And the developer recently had a big update and is planning to release a new map during the Christmas season, so there's a reason to check back. Lastly, Dead Rising 4 Frank's Big Package. Yeah, I get why a lot of people dislike this game, as Frank feels out of character and the lack of real cycles. But the zombie killing combat is really fun still, and I was never a fan of being timed while playing. Plus, it has a strong Christmas theme, which is a plus in my book. Blood Rain Betrayal, Fresh Bites. I finished up the Blood Rain remasters in 2025, and I have to say Betrayal was a well done job. I say this because the original was just frustrating and not fun, and it seems in this remaster they balanced it out for a much better time, and I would recommend playing this one. The game also offers the option to play how it originally was if you want to go through that hell. Bombshell. I know the game after this one's more well loved, but I actually have fun with Bombshell even with some of its tech issues. And I actually like the lead more here as it gave her a bit more of a personality for this outing compared to the next one. Absalom. My friend bought me this game on Steam so we could play together, and after running through it, I'm happy he did as it's an insanely fun roguelike beat 'em up with some great visuals. My only issue is the true final boss and how it kind of punishes you for playing together, since on a second run in co-op it raises the difficulty way more. Unholy. Another fun roguelike that combines hot women with killing vampires and other monsters. You have to pick up 3 characters who play differently from one another, and the game is pretty welcoming for its type. The headliners. Never knew a game about taking pictures can be so much fun. Me and my friend played some runs, and boy was it intense trying to get that perfect picture for some good old points, while almost getting killed by monsters, be they our height or fucking giant. The game has been updated since we last played, meaning there's a chance it could be even better. Forgive me, Father. This is an insanely fun FPS with some great designs and a visual style that really makes it stand out, with a whole lot of blood and violence, and even gives you some powers that help make the 2 playable characters stand out a little from each other. I look forward to playing the sequel eventually. Number 1, Astrobot. I understand why this platformer won so many damn awards. It's a love letter to classic and even new games that grace the PlayStation, as you collect bots that resemble characters from Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Resident Evil, DMC, Uncharted, and more. The levels are insanely fun and creative with a good amount of things to find and collect. You also have the powers like the Rocket Dog, Inflation, Boxing Gloves, and more that help mix things up. The difficulty is not crazy, so anyone can pick up and play. And for those that do want that extra challenge, there are side planets you can play that really test your skills. Basically, they took the Astrobot Playroom and turned the dial up to 11, and I just loved it. So yeah, that was my top 10 of games I played in 2025. Sorry again it took so long, and I hope if you haven't played any of these or even some of my honorable mentions, you would give them at least a look now. If you got any games you played in 2025 that you enjoyed, go ahead and give them a shout out. As always, I hope you enjoy my thoughts on these games, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.